Hey, good morning. Hoping you all will be ready to rock and roll. I'm going to let you know I've got my phone down here. It's why I'm looking down and away from you. How rude, right? But I have to stay right on time. So today I will be on with you for exactly an hour, 59 more minutes to be exact, because I've got a business meeting and my staff will not start without me. So I need to jump onto that, but wanted to let you know I am watching my phone here for questions as well, just in case. I think it worked really well yesterday, being able to see comments here from the live view. So we're going to rock and roll with that. But just for anybody who's joining separately, or didn't come yesterday and is joining me for the first time, hello, it's Deborah Atkinson with Flipping 50. And I'm not going to bore you with the scroll of who I am and what I've done, but you can visit Flipping 50, which is spelled out all words.com. Go to the About page to get the dirt on me. So I will let you head there, and want to let you know today is part 2. Yesterday, we really talked about the benefits of weight training, kind of a review for so many of you. But if you're choosing one or two of them, as so many of us do, we get started because we want to, have better looking legs or buns or better arms, or we want to lose a little weight. And generally, that's not the first reason people will strength train. But we don't choose, or maybe are not aware of all of the benefits. So go back and listen if you haven't yet. I'm going to put the link for the handout right here in comments. So if you don't have that, you happen to be joining for the first time, or maybe just seeing this randomly thinking, I want to know how to choose my weights and reps, then you can go enter your best email address right now, and it should land in your inbox. Might be in your spam or your trash within minutes, and you'll get 3 parts. So part 1, part 2, and part 3 workbook. I have mine printed out just to help with notes so that I can deliver it in exactly the way you have it, so that you can take organized notes and not be, taking random acts of writing, and you'll have exactly what you want when you're done. So I hope that was helpful for you. So today is all about taking those benefits and the 6th, and I actually gave you a 7th most common mistake that women over 50 make when they strength train, and flipping them to help you get specific with what weight do you need to choose. One of the mistakes was lifting too light and or not reaching fatigue. So I think we thoroughly defined that yesterday as far as what is reaching fatigue and what is the difference between that and just going fast and getting tired. Because you and I could both do 2 very different workouts, and walking out the door, either our at-home gym or walking out the door to a fitness center, say, what a great workout. We could feel like we were really tired. But one of us potentially elevated and boosted metabolism in a way that 12 months later, we now have a faster metabolism. And one of us potentially just burned a lot of calories during an hour and has to go back and do it again. And that's where rapid movement, sometimes boot camps, come in. Sure, you're doing lots of exercises that are unique and fun and stimulating, but if you have to go back again and again, it is more cardio than it is strength, and changing your metabolism is going to require some strength and muscle. So that's kind of where we're picking up, where we left off yesterday. And so if you've got questions, I've given you on the first page, or second page actually, a place to put in what are my questions. So either you have them already and you're jotting them down, or you're going to jot them as we go so you don't forget them, and or you can put them in the comments right away too. All right. So, and I will come back later, and I will come back even to yesterday's. If you asked a question on there that I didn't get to or I haven't seen yet, I will come back in. So I was so pleased that many of you commented that it was helpful, insightful, and beneficial. And if I missed something, I also want you to tell me that, like, hey, I need to know this right now. So I use my intermission as much as possible and use what women have asked or what they wish they would have asked earlier on. So you may not know to ask yet. So I'm hoping. Hey, Mary Jane. Oh, thanks. So nice. Darlene, welcome. Carol, I like to do this. It makes me feel like romper room, though. Do you know what I mean? Do you remember the beginning? Okay, anyway. Donna, Flora, Joellen, hello, hello. Thanks everybody for joining me. Nancy, Catherine. All right, so let's dive in. So we're really going to talk about literally right now, how do we know what weight to pick? That's probably one of the most common questions I'm asked when I'm talking about you need to be strength training. And is your strength training beneficial? And we're diving into that conversation. So we know that, we can be doing things, but if we're not doing it in the right consistency, like the right duration, the right intensity level, and that's where weight comes in when you're strength training. That's the intensity determinant. And with the right rest between, we're not going to get as good a results. You can liken that to taking a vitamin. So if I ask someone, are you taking a multivitamin on a regular basis? I will get I'm taking it, on the regular basis is, about 3 times a week. That is not what I mean, right? So I mean daily. Are you taking that? And is it a vitamin built for you? So those details really do matter, right? So, and that's clearly for you easier to understand. So for me, if we take exercise or strength training is the vitamin, and the analogy is that, then I want you to be taking that twice a week, with plenty of time for recovery in between, reaching fatigue, and working major muscle groups, especially if you want to improve your metabolism, keep your lean muscle for aging better, stronger, longer is a pretty cool term, right? And for building better bone density. So there are those things, and then all the other benefits we talked about yesterday. So here's where we dive in. There are 3 repetition ranges really that I want you to hone in on. And so you can do anywhere from 1 repetition. And I would never recommend that. We don't even really test college age athletes. We don't take the football players in very often and do something like a 1 repetition max because we don't want them hurt. So we might do a 3 repetition max, but safer for everybody is doing a 10 repetition max, and then we figure it out from there. But the repetition ranges could be anywhere from 1 to, 28 or 30 is as many as I would ever have anyone do. And yet there is a reason and a time when it would be appropriate to do 28. And that's kind of the highest that I will ever take somebody, but it's with a specific purpose, and it would not be the only thing that would have them do. So we'll talk about that. So the repetition ranges I'm going to give you, number 1 would be 10 or fewer repetitions. And I'm going to come back to this, and I'll tell you when these things are appropriate. So 10 or fewer repetitions means not just saying, okay, 9, 10, put them down. Next exercise, it means 9, 10, and I'm getting sloppy, so I have to put those down. And it might be that you only do 6 or you only do 7. And if your body can handle it and you have progressed to that point, that is okay. There's no need to put that weight down and then do more repetitions saying, I have to reach a quota, right? Or I have to get to 15, or I have to get to 20. You don't. Strength training, exercise in general, is one of the only places where failure or temporary failure is success. We overloaded the muscle enough for it then to say, wait a minute, right? They kind of hurt me a little bit. They broke me down. I couldn't do it. So what your body will do is get more resilient. It's very much like getting a flu shot or getting any one of the immunizations that we give babies. The purpose is we give them a little bit so that all of those antibodies get stronger. So you will never get that if you're exposed to it. That's the goal. And really that's on a mini scale what's happening with strength training. If we overload you and help you reach fatigue during your strength training, between workouts, that Tuesday and Wednesday when you're not lifting weights is when you actually get stronger. Your body says, okay, well, I'm going to repair, but I'm not just going to come up to that level I was at. I'm going to go a little higher just in case I get that again. And that's how we get stronger, and we get more lean tissue, and we get a better body composition, lower fat, higher muscle. That's what it's all about. And in the process, you get more energy and feel like you can do anything, and nobody needs to carry those grocery bags for you unless you want them to. Okay, so 10 or fewer. Number 2 is 12 to 15. And I want you to pay attention to something. So the repetition range that many of us were taught when we were younger was 10 or 12 repetitions. Notice how that is not in there. Okay? Notice how generally that's not in there. So I'm going to say 10 or less. I'm going to say about 12 to 15. And the reason we have to give you a bit of a range is because you and I can't even predict. I can't, after 34 years, predict exactly which repetition I'm going to fatigue at. I have a pretty good idea of what weights I should pick up. But it's also a matter of how much stress am I under? Did I get a good night's sleep? What else did I do this week? So if you went up and down your stairs with boxes of Christmas ornaments, I'm pointing to my tree, and you were working in a way that normally you don't get that much kind of exercise all day, that, the workout I do after that might not be as good as the one I did 3 days ago, super fresh, right after vacation maybe. So we can't predict. So it's always plus or minus a few, and you're getting in that ballpark as often as possible. So number 1 is 10 or fewer. Number 2 is 12 to 15 repetitions. And number 3 is 15 to 28, right? So that's a broad range, I realize, but there is a reason why that would come into play. And for a lot of my clients or students who are apparently healthy, there's nothing wrong with a joint, and pretty much they can do everything. I would cap that at 15 to 20. So with a beginner, I would start them with about 20 repetitions and no more than that. And yet, if I had somebody who had something special going on, we'll talk more about this, then I would definitely have them err on the conservative side, depending on where they are. So we'll dive into that right now. I'm going to unpack that. But you've got those rep ranges, 10 or fewer, 12 to 15, and then 15 to 28, or to 20 if you're apparently healthy. So number 1, rep range number 1, I'm going to ask you, and these are not necessarily coinciding with the number 1, number 2, and number 3 above. When do more repetitions and less weight, when does that make sense? So we're really talking about that number 3, 15 to 28 repetitions. So you can put that one in there so you don't get confused. That really comes into play when we talk about 3 different things. Gait, G-A-I-T, your walk, meaning, it may not be you and I who are concerned about this. It may be you and I concerned about this for our parents. That's when we might have them do some workload against bands, and they're going to be able to do up to 20 or 25 with much lighter weight. That's about what we call 40%. If you can go up to 25 or 28 repetitions, it's about 40% of your 1 repetition max, or the most that you could ever lift. So it's fairly easy, not a lot of resistance. If you were standing in water that was kind of the depth of nipple to navel, so you're standing in water where you have some control, and you were trying to swing your leg back and forth against resistance, but not super fast, because the faster you go, the more resistance you're going to get. That's moving at about 40% resistance. You're going to get resistance going back and forth or outside and inside, but you have full range of movement, and it's very functional because it's going to help you lubricate the joint and get moving a little bit easier. That's the kind of resistance we're talking about. We're not really talking about you getting on a leg press, loading it up, and getting really, really strong with a weight load. So I'm watching the package delivery guy come close to the front door and hoping my dog doesn't notice it, or you may hear a bark, okay? So I think he'll probably knock, which is the worst thing he could do. Oh, he didn't. He just left it, but now we've seen him. Okay, so there you go, the blow by blow here. So gait is one reason you would want to do that. And if you've had an injury, you've had a hip injury, you may come back from things doing this lightweight many times. If you've ever gone to physical therapy, that's closer to the rep range that they will have you do. The other reason is performance. So if you were telling me, I want to get better at golf, I want more power, that's a long lever, right? You've got your arms extended and then you've got the club extended beyond that. So I might have you do lighter weight and develop a little bit more power as part of your workout. It wouldn't be the only part of your workout, but it's much more sport specific. And likewise, if I were having you do anything that mimicked an activity that you were going to do, swimming, moving the arms in the same way that you swim, or running, moving your legs back and forth in a lunge to a standing position. That's kind of that light weight. So performance and gait. And the last one is power. If we want you to be able to develop some power in legs or arms, we might do a really light workout. But again, mostly this is a part of your workout. It's not all of your workout. So whether it's a bigger part because right now you're injured and you need to recover and you're just doing a small part of something else, or it's, 10 to 20% of your regular workout because metabolism or bone density is the bigger part. It's usually there in some way, shape, or form, okay? So that's when more repetitions and less weight is appropriate. So it's about gait, it's about performance, or we want to give you some power. The second repetition range, when you do one of them that is not here, the one I mentioned, notice that it's not here, the 10 to 12 repetition range. So how many of you, I'd love to see, were taught 3 sets of 10 repetitions. That's what you should do when you strength train. And you were taught to do a circuit, kind of going around all of the weight machines in the gym. And there were maybe 10 or 12 or 14 of them that you would do. And then you would go back around and do them again. And that's how many of us back in the late 70s or the early 80s were taught. It's what I was taught in college and in high school before that. That was the norm. That was the quote unquote, here's your quota. Here's your exercise prescription for strength training should be 3 sets of 10. And then we had them write down on little charts what we were doing. So that would be the time you want to do it if you have a specific body type. And we'll be talking about what your body type is. But if you are struggling to actually gain muscle, that's the one you want. If you tend to bulk up easily, this is the absolute worst thing that you can do because it is called the bulk building protocol. So I have shared this before in books, and You Still Got It, Girl, and on some live classes, master classes before within the cafe members area. And, I'm always asking, does anyone want to go back and strangle your high school PE teacher, who drills into your head that's what you need to do? It is now known as the bulk building protocol. So if you were somebody who is like, I hate lifting weights because my thighs always get big, or, my arms, get bigger, they don't get tinier and tighter and, sleeveless. And that's why, especially based on body type. And we're going to come to that in a minute. But if you struggle to gain lean weights, and you struggle, you're not seeing any muscle mass anymore, even though you're doing a lot of exercise, this may be the one you do want. So there's an appropriate place for it, especially now that we have less testosterone and less growth hormone, which help us build muscle faster, okay? So I'm going to slip this in. This is not really to talk about protein needs, but it is a big part of, if you do struggle to put on weight, you have to have adequate calories, period, and you have to have adequate protein within the calories that you take in, or you're going to struggle. Protein is the building block of muscle, and without it, you will not have the fuel to rebuild and repair. So important to remember that. So the third rep range, and kind of going in reverse order right now we're talking about when is 10 or fewer fewer repetitions with heavier weight. And that is kind of one determines the other, right? So if we say, I want you to fatigue at 10 or fewer repetitions, and you're starting out, I would never say that. I want you to know that. So starting out, we always start somebody high. We progress to a lower repetition range with a higher weight. We stay there for a while, and then we progress to a slightly heavier weight with a lower repetition range. So it's important that you do a progression and then get ultimately to my goal is bone density. We will get there, but it may take 2 and even 3 months to do it conservatively, smartly, so that we don't get hurt. And what we're doing is just laying a stronger foundation when you do that. So when do you do 10 or fewer? When your goal is bone density, or when it is metabolism, meaning you want to increase your lean muscle mass, decrease your body fat. So if weight loss is a big one, eventually you are going to want to get to doing heavier weight and fewer repetitions, at least for a portion of your workout time, either per workout or per week. One workout may be one type and the other may be another type. So we're stimulating your body correctly for a portion of time all the time, regularly. Okay, so I'm turning the page, right? Flipping this over and looking at 3 body types, okay? I'm gonna do a little scrolling and just see if I've got anything. Darlene says, are exercise tubing just as good as free weights? My answer to that, Darlene, would be no. Exercise tubing is not as good as anything, not even as good as body weight in some ways, although it does allow you to do pulling exercises. But there is no way to control or predict where you're gonna fatigue. Tubing and plastic properties, when you stretch them out, have a different variability. And whether you stretch them a little or you stretch them a lot, the variability goes up. And your muscles, as they insert into the joint, say the elbow and the shoulder in this case, if I were talking about my bicep and doing a curl, is weaker here at the end points than it is in the belly. Well, when I pull on tubing, it starts being weaker. So maybe that's appropriate for this part here. It goes tighter, which is okay for this part here, but then it's harder yet, which is not appropriate for this weaker part of the muscle. So there's a challenge in getting a great workout with tubing for the length of your muscle. And we need it all. And we need this insertion and origins to be strongest, because that's how your muscle is attached to the bone. So tubing can be great. It can be used as one of those very, very low and light for full range of motion. It's often used in physical therapy as recovery, and it can be supplemental. There's a place for it. And certainly when you travel, does it allow some kind of stimulus for you? Absolutely. But I'm a much bigger fan of free weights, and the difference between cost is minimal. So I would definitely invest. So that's kind of my personal preference. I almost never use tubing. The only time I throw it in is at request of some of you. But if I were choosing the best for me, the most efficient and effective use of my time, I'm going to grab a weight every single time. And likewise with my clients, because one of the reasons clients reach out and want a trainer is because they're tired of guessing, they're not getting results, and they want it effectively in a short amount of time. Hey, Nancy says, I love the Stronger program. Thanks so much. Hello, hello. Okay, question about food. I have the hardest time finding high protein, easy lunches I can take to work and eat in 20 minutes. I'm a teacher. Diane, I would recommend soups. It's funny, this morning I was working on the celebrity chef salad and soup recipes that I'm giving to our cafe members this month of January. And, you know, one of the recipes by the chefs said, you know, this is a huge recipe, so, you know, you might have to cut it in half. And I'm like, heck no, it's only me at this house and the dog, he doesn't eat soup. But I would make that whole thing because, you know, put half of it in the freezer, and that is so easy to put in a thermos now and take it, and you've got something, but in one bowl. And I'm a huge fan of one pan or one pot. you can get your veggies in, you can get your protein in there, and you're good to go. So I would be a soup girl a lot. And the other option would be salads, like mason jar salads. I don't personally do that myself because I don't have to travel with them generally. And I like to actually make it up fresh, but you can do so much ahead of time. So it's in that mason jar, it's ready to go and roll. And, likewise with soup. So those would be a couple of my biggest suggestions for help. And Terry says, yes, 3 cents a town, definitely. And Cindy says, I'm going in and out. Is anybody else having trouble hearing me? You can let me know. Maybe life in Kentucky. Yeah, Diane, great. So they're not quite in there yet, but they absolutely will be. That's awesome. Perfect timing for you. Okay, so let's talk body type. And I want you to think in 2 terms, because you at midlife may be slightly different when you've had hormone changes. But I want you to think about, how would you have described yourself in your 20s and your 30s and potentially your 40s, and also right now? So if you're here at Flipping 50, that may be because you just want to live longer and stronger, and you want to get all the tips you can in the education about, how you can make things better. But you may also be looking for some solutions because you're not perfectly happy with changes that have happened to your body, and you kind of want to regroup and get them back. Totally get that. So think about the body then and the body now. And just, I want you to be sure you're picking really the right body type, because if you're feeling you've gained a little weight, gained a little body fat, or you're feeling fluffier than you'd like to, that may be if you haven't tested your food sensitivities. You may be eating foods that are just doing that to you. And some of that may be water weight and or inflammation in your body that you can easily rid yourself of. The window is closed on the 28-day kickstart. Enrollment closed last night, so you can't get in on that one. But look at something else if you're not sure, and reach out to me about testing for food sensitivity. And I'm not suggesting a lab test. I'm suggesting literally test yourself, because your body never lies. It will immediately tell you that you're releasing some weight and those types of things, or if you're under a lot of stress. And you may not be necessarily feeling it or saying, I'm totally stressed, but your body may be telling you that something has got to go and you're a little bit stressed. So stress, food sensitivity, which in the end is another form of stress. Your body isn't liking some food and it's letting you know that, or lack of sleep. All of those things may be changing your body shape. So take that into consideration, all right? But there are 3 body types. And number 1 is a mesomorph. And that means that you are more muscular in nature. So if you've ever exercised regularly, you found that you responded pretty quickly. You felt stronger. You could see muscle tone maybe faster than anybody else in the room doing the same program. And, you might notice that you're one who never fit into the skinny jeans because you have muscles on your thighs, girlfriend. And I'm giving you a virtual high five right there, because I'm that girl too. Skinny jeans, I'm like, who did this? Who came up with this idea? Because they are cute as heck, but my thighs are not going to fit into them. Doesn't matter, what I would do. That's not going to happen. So, think about, whether that describes you. You don't have to have been athletic, but you responded fairly well, and you have a pretty balanced body, and you look athletic, even if potentially you aren't all that, active in sports. That's you. You would say you're that. Now, realize that we all have a little bit, of some of these, depending on what our habits are. We may cross over, but, it's probably the one that says, oh yeah, to you, it's like, yeah, that's me, or I've always been that. That's the one, the first one. The second body type is an endomorph, and that is a curvy girl. So really shapely. I mean, you might be a little underweight or a little overweight, but you still have curves. You're the curvy girl. You're the Marilyn Monroe, a little more voluptuous. And that doesn't mean you have to be a 36D, or have, a waistline that's 24 inches, and be that. But definitely you've always had a pretty balanced body, pretty curvy, pretty much more soft than muscular, and definitely not linear. Okay, which is type 3. Type 3 is much more linear, more like a man, straight up and down, not really a waistband. I mean, you might have a waistline, but you're fairly lean without much effort, and kind of more squared off, as opposed to curvy girl, rounder, softer, and definitely then that more athletic individual. Now, you don't have to be skinny, but you probably are on a thinner side, or always were. Okay. So let me know. Anybody still confused about, where we're at? Hey, Kathy, DeFranco, I'm talking to you. So your comment, I can't see when it came in. So it might have been right away, but I'm hoping you got a closer answer to your question, and you will, by the end, know which weights to buy. So great question. Thanks so much. Okay. Will you be offering a body weight series? I will never. Nope. Because that was one of the things that I talked about yesterday. If you were able to make that one, Diane, the reason is because body weight does not do enough for metabolism. It does not do enough for bone density. And you can't, unless you have a pull-up bar and you are able to do pull-ups, do enough pulling exercises to improve your posture. Most of the body weight exercises put your shoulder at risk. I'm doing tricep dips right now as I sit in my chair, and or shoulders at risk, wrists at risk, elbows at risk, because you're going to overuse the chest muscles doing things like push-ups. So what you're limited to with body weight exercises, I don't find applicable for the top 10 reasons most women are wanting to do strength training. So I will never be that gal. And I am okay with that if you are looking for that. It's just that I'm all about hormone balancing, and body weight exercises are not going to do it. So I've got to say no and kind of pick a side at some point. I can't do everything and be everything to everybody, but I'm glad you asked that question. And no judgment, but I would definitely get to the end of today and take your, what conditions, do I have, what goals do I have, and what is my body type, and what is the best recommendation for reaching fatigue for me. And from that, match the exercise you need, whether it's body weight, whether it's tubing, or whether it's weight training, to the goal, because that's the best way to really decide, as opposed to personal preference. I too like Pilates. I am a reformer certified instructor. I too like yoga, but they are not enough stimulus for the muscles and for the bones to help with longevity, the kind that makes us live to 100 feeling good, staying independent. So great question, however. Okay, so the body type best workout tips. Are you ready? So number one, looking at the mesomorph. This group is in order, thank goodness. All right, so if you are a muscular person by nature, you're a lucky girl, really, is the way I look at it, because you can choose, and you need to or want to, a variety of stimulus. And that means don't choose just one because you like it, but do a variety of things. If you are that muscular girl, occasionally you could do body weight, but you still need to come back to doing those weights. And maybe you can do some tubing exercises and or throw them in, but do a variety of heavier weight, of moderate, probably the least amount that I would want you to do. I would never want you to do that 10 to 12 rep range, because you bulk up really easily. Even now, you still would. So you can do 10 or fewer, you can do 12 to 15, and you can do 15 to 28. And depending on your goal, you can kind of do, most of your workout here. You can do a portion of your workout here and a portion of it here. so you can get all your goals met and your wants and desires met by using them each and every workout. Or you can go through weeks at a time where I'm going to lift heavier for, a 3-week period, and then I'm going to back off and I'm going to go a little bit lighter. That keeps your body guessing. And for a gal who is a mesomorph, more muscular by nature and responds really well, breaking it up and stimulating your muscles in different ways is going to give you the best results and the most tone and best strength as well. And plus your mental, approach to the exercise will be, this is going to be fun because, it's something I have to think about, stay tuned in. And although that may feel a little bit overwhelming, I will say that, sometimes when you're thinking about weight training, like the most important decision you have to make for 30 minutes is, what size weights am I going to do right now? That feels like a load off your mind, right? It's not any major thing like, a business decision or a major household decision or paying the bills decision. It's a mini vacation because you get to focus on something else completely and your brain is tuned into what else you're doing. Okay, so best workouts for body type number 2. If you're a curvy girls want to do heavy weights twice a week, and you want to focus on the heavy weights because they were going to help you develop more lean muscle tissue, which will help you in the end decrease fat, because muscle tissue is more metabolically active. It boosts your metabolism, helping you between meals as you stop snacking, right? That's key, helping you burn more fat, not just during the exercise. Actually, cardio is a during the exercise calorie burner. But unfortunately, after that, it's done. You've stopped and you have to do it again and again. It's like crack, right? But weight training lasts. You change your metabolism because you bump your lean muscle tissue. Your metabolism is high at rest. So if I did weight training today and I'm a woman who weight trains, sitting here, my metabolism is higher than if I had taken a year off of weight training and I'm not doing it. My metabolism isn't as high, even if I were doing the same dose of cardio every week. Okay, so super important. So curvy girls want to get to a point they're lifting heavier and they kind of hit it and quit it. You lift heavy, you make it effective and efficient. You don't spend hours doing it and then you leave it alone and let yourself recover with good protein. Okay, body type number 3, best workout. If you're struggling, you're very linear, it's hard for you to put on lean muscle. You can't see any muscle tone, even even though you're exercising, then you're what we call a hard gainer, or the guys in the locker room and the weight room would call you a hard gainer, those bodybuilders. And that just means it's a little more challenging for you. And as you age, it probably is more so because of, our testosterone level goes down, our growth hormone production also goes down. We can do things, sleep really well, lift weights, eat enough protein, keep our stress level low, stop drinking alcohol. Those things help boost testosterone, and those will help, but it's still going to be overall lower than it was when you were 20 and 30. So things for you to do are to avoid overtraining. You don't want to do tons of exercise. The opposite is very true. But that 10 to 12 repetition range that we all should have hated and avoided when we were in our 20s and 30s is what you should be doing. So that is the bulk building protocol that is not going to make you bulky, but it actually will stand a chance at helping you get more muscle tone back. So 10 to 12 repetitions to fatigue. Super important that you remember that part. That's what you want to be doing. And it's ideal for you, but the other 2 things I've mentioned are also true. And these are true for all of us, but much more so for the curvy girls and for the ectomorph, the more linear girls. You need to have adequate calories and adequate protein. Remember, protein is the building blocks of muscle. So you're not going to develop lean muscle for boosting metabolism without it. You've got to have it. And timing is very important. Okay. Now your limiters, and this is where I stop talking and I'm going to give you a second or two to write in your own. Your limiters will be, part of what this puzzle is for us now. And the reason you can't necessarily put your hand up when somebody puts an advertisement for a great boot camp or a next program, because you're juggling hormone balance, you're juggling the goals that you've got, the body type you have, and your personal limiters. Have you got an old shoulder injury that makes you vulnerable? Have you got an imbalance? You've got maybe an upper trap, configuration here that, lends you to something either wrong in the muscle, or that may be scoliosis going on. You've got some issue there that could be a limiter for you. Maybe you're aware you have osteoporosis and it's progressed, so you need to work around that. You may have arthritis, and it could be osteoarthritis just of older age. We've lived a good life. We had a lot of high impact or some trauma. Maybe an accident that caused trauma to a joint that makes it more arthritic. Or you've got rheumatoid arthritis, which tends to be a little bit more in the hands, maybe in the knees or the hips or the lower back as well. And there's no place that it can't be, but those are the more common ones. So write those things down, because what you're going to want to do is just keep them in mind. And that doesn't dictate that your entire workout has to select weights around that. But for instance, if I have trouble or I struggle with my shoulder and or my elbow, that might mean for me that pushing exercises, doing a chest press, or doing extension exercises, doing some kind of a tricep exercise, I'm going to go on the lighter side with more repetitions. So with any of our limiters, we're going to tend to do that. However, there's a sweet spot. If you have arthritis, we know that there's kind of degeneration starting to happen in the joints, and we want to find a sweet spot of not so heavy that we add stress to the joint, and not so light that we add just wear and tear on the joints, because we're doing so many of them. We want to kind of back down from it. So you may never do, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, I would prefer, and I don't have my clients do, more than 25 repetitions. I generally like them to stay between about 15 and 20-ish repetitions, sometimes not to fatigue in those joints that are specifically affected, because we want to avoid a flare. And if you have arthritis, you recognize the fact that it's not just during the exercise, but it's the 72 hours afterward that your body can flare and tell you that was way too much, sister, right? And you don't want that. So it's good to finish feeling good. When you've got arthritis, you're working around a special condition. And the same is true with fibromyalgia. So both autoimmune diseases, and it can also, though, be osteoarthritis, which is just kind of later in life. We're probably all going to get that. And as we can live longer and longer, there are things that we can do to regenerate, like stem cell regeneration from, say, intermittent fasting or using the fasting mimicking diet. I use that myself. I use it with a lot of my clients, and you won't see it in the store because I like to talk to you first to make sure it's appropriate. But if you're interested, you can let me know about that. So write down your limiters. Just be thinking joints, conditions, or injuries. I'm going to think about that. Put it down. And then the three most common goals of you still got it, girl. A woman in midlife almost always comes to me with these. These don't have to be yours. However, weight loss, and really I just want to clarify that it's fat loss that you want. It's not just weight. So you've got to make sure that you don't give the scale alone and the number all the power. It really has to be specifically fat loss. And some of you get more specific with me and will say, it's definitely cellulite, because that can happen to someone who is fairly small and petite and lean and the body weight is fine. It's just all of a sudden I'm seeing this cellulite I never saw before, right? And dimples are cute, but not on me, right? Not there. So number one, that's it. Number two, the goal is often bone density. And it's happening now to us, coming to our attention, because potentially we are having a bone density scan, and or we've got a parent who's got osteoporosis and we're seeing what happens, so we become more conscious. There's a little bit more urgency to it once a parent maybe has a fracture, okay? The third most common goal for me is women who are right here and they're like, this is a bucket list right now. So I'm starting, and this is going to be my fittest year. Actually, I'm committing verbally. That is my fittest year. I've already committed. Um, but it's performance. It's like I've never done a 5K maybe, and I want to do one, whether you're walking or you're running, or I've never, done XYZ, and you're thinking, I want to start training for that. Or now I've got a little bit more time. I want to learn to play golf, or I want to learn how to swim. So strength training comes into play to help make those activities more fun, number one, because when you're stronger and or have more endurance from the strength training, that sport gets better, and the sport period of life, right, gets easier. So there is those. And I would put under performance anything functionally that you like to do. So it doesn't have to be a sport like the things I've just described, but maybe it's picking up grandchildren, leaning over, picking them up out of a bassinet or a crib and being very active with them down on the floor. Those kinds of things may be also quote unquote performance goals. So anything, that you've got in mind works there. So write yours down, right? Those are the most common, but if yours isn't there, put them there. And then I would really want you to say, what's my highest priority? So if it is fat loss and weight loss, because, and yes, bone density is important, right? But to you, it may be that weight loss and fat loss needs to happen first. Maybe about who you are and being able to do more so that you can continue to work on that bone density. The weight loss and the fat loss are probably going to show up before potentially bone density will. Bone density changes take a little time to actually measure. Well, first of all, whether it's a DEXA scan that you're seeing that on or something else, before you can get another one and justify it to your insurance company, you have to significantly have gone through a change for 6 months sometimes, but often it's 12 months before they will measure again. So where do we come up with your personal best plan given all of those things? So let's just go back. What have we talked about so far? The repetition ranges, but as they apply to the body type you have, the special conditions you have, those limiters, and to your goals. Kind of, we want that three-legged stool to determine collectively, all right, how do I determine? So the best repetition range for a beginner, if you are not doing anything right now, is between about 15 and 25 repetitions, or 15 to 20 if you are one of my clients, and limited on time, because time is often the biggest obstacle. Does anybody concur with that? So looking at 15 to 20 repetitions to fatigue and just getting a feel for the exercise and what happens during that first 6 to 8 weeks that you start a new exercise or strength training. The neural component, your brain sends signals to the muscles to recruit more fibers to fire better. So it's not about lifting heavily in that first 2 months of strength training anyway. It won't get you ahead, and it might get you behind because you will be more likely to get injured. So it's go light. So beginners are going to start there. As you increase your strength and you find yourself saying, I haven't found anything wrong, I haven't had too many aches and pains, my joints feel good, and it's been 2 weeks at least of doing twice a week, then you might increase your weight so that you fatigue between 15 or 12 and 15 repetitions. So that's a form of progression. And if you're more advanced and your joints or joint by joint, you will tolerate, you want to fatigue at 10 or fewer repetitions. The challenge you'll run into potentially is it's hard to exercise at home and fatigue that lower body doing squats. And, you can only hold, a certain heaviness in your arms without letting that pull you down and have poor form. But several of our clients in the Stronger program and the Cafe report to me that they in fact asked for a weighted vest, and we're so excited. So my job here is done, right? Everybody's listening, but that's another way to add 20 pounds plus what you're holding in your hand. That can help, and so can slowing down. So couple extra tips for you, podcasts that I've added this week, just a special mini series talking again about strength training. Can you see how big this is going to be for your 2019 from at least for Flipping 50? Talking about 6 ways to make a workout more effective without necessarily having to increase the weight. And I talked about that, I think it was yesterday. So you can go and find those on flipping50.com under podcasts, and you'll find both those short ones about strength training and about how to do that. So those are kind of intermediate, beginner, advanced status. So I like to tell someone if they're purchasing weights for home use to get 3 sets, because we have big muscles and joints that can handle bigger weight, like our hips, right? And with major muscle groups in that lower body, we need larger weights to be able to hold on to an overload. But we also have, the chest in a press or a rowing exercise, and those are kind of moderate. So you need a heavy, a medium challenging weight, and you need a small weight. And so I'm not referring to repetition ranges necessarily here, but it may take me 10 or fewer repetitions of using a 2 or 3 pound weight to work my shoulders and reach fatigue. So you're going to have small weights for small muscles, medium weights for medium muscles, and bigger weights for big muscles. So it's nice to have a series. And if you're starting at home and you're thinking, I'm in this for the duration, you will eventually probably outgrow a pair of weights and need a heavier set. But that's okay, because you'll have days when, it's harder today. And you don't necessarily know when those are going to show up. So it's important to kind of have a variety. So you may have to go into a store and, be able to pick them up and play with them. You can go to your soup cupboard right now and pick up a bigger can of maybe vegetables or soup and, do some exercises and kind of get a feel for, okay, this is a pound. How am I feeling with this? And am I reaching fatigue or even coming close? And that'll give you just at least some idea of what you need. So I hope that's helpful. So the repetition ranges again for limiters and joint issues. In general, it's more repetitions and lighter weight. But if you have arthritis, I would say stick around that 20 plus or minus a couple repetitions, because you don't want to go more and more and just be wearing out that joint doing more of them. For bone density, remember, ultimately 10 or fewer repetitions would be ideal, but you still have to start out. And you take about 2 weeks at a certain weight, let it get easy and no problems, and then you increase to the next weight. And then again, likewise, you increase again. So write down your body type, write down your conditions in that rep range, and write down, your goals in the ideal rep range. And what you're looking for is the consistency, but you always let, do no harm be your mantra. So if you have a joint issue at that joint, that's what gets to determine how many repetitions you will do, and therefore the size of the weight that you need to lift. So you want to never compromise on, there's an advantage to doing it this way, but the disadvantage, if there's any, tells you I'm going to go with the better way, the conservative way, because we want you well and fit and better, not injured. So be smart about your selections. So, and let me know if you've got questions. I have 6 minutes before I've got to jump off for a staff meeting. And okay, so Mary Jane suggested the internet was slow. So Cindy, it might be you as opposed to anybody else. Nobody's really otherwise complaining. So Darlene says, I'm a mesomorph. How many days a week should I lift weights? My goal for almost everybody is twice. Twice a week is ideal. There's a reason and justification for that. As we age, we need more recovery, not more exercise to do good. You need more quality, intensity exercise. And to do that, you have to rest between. So those people who are exercising Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's easy to play a game with ourselves thinking, well, I'm going to lift again on Wednesday. And so we kind of just check out and we're going through the motions, but we're not doing much good. So stimulate the muscle when you're doing it. And if you work out less often, you will make every minute count. I can guarantee you that. I spent about 14 months under a lot of stress, kind of going through changes as I taught at a university for years. I was in physical plants and fitness centers for years, and 30, in fact, and then said, done. I'm going to try to reach more people as I have a limited wingspan here. And I kind of jumped in a little bit too quick, too fast. So I had some pressure on me. I had to perform. And I wouldn't have done it any different, but that was a lot of stress and pressure. So I exercised about 20 minutes a day when I exercised. It might have been 20 minutes of weight, might have been 20 minutes of, often it was walking the dog, and it might have been 20 minutes of intervals. But when you have that little time, you make it count. So if you're lifting weights twice a week, you will make it count a whole lot more than if you're doing 3 times a week. So whether you're muscular, because you don't need more muscle, right? You've already got lots, so you don't want to overdo it. Or you're a curvy girl, you're going to be lifting heavy and you need recovery to do that. Or you're lean and you're a hard gainer. If you over exercise, you will push yourself further from your goal. So for all of us, body type wise, twice a week is plenty. So if you have muscles that need special exercises, maybe you're doing some post rehab, then you may want to do some extra things for those muscles, but not necessarily taxing with high intensity reaching fatigue. So I'm hoping that helps. Marcia says, is there still time to join the Stronger program and get the pre-course materials in time? Yes, but do it today. So it's one of the things that in 3 minutes I'm talking to my staff. They're going to pull their hair out, I know, but I am absolutely going to tell them, I know we're registering and I know materials are going out Saturday for everybody, but I may have some stragglers. So I want everybody in who gets in. I would love for you to be in by the 1st. So that way you've got a first full week of January to get those first 2 workouts in. So I will put the link here as soon as we jump off so that you can get registered if you don't already have it. And I believe I put it in yesterday's video. So that'll be in the timeline. Do you recommend 3 sets? Darlene, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. So as I was talking about how you progress, I recommend 1 set for a beginner. 1, right? Think about you're going from 0 to doing 100% more than you did yesterday or last week or last month by doing 1 set. We often don't do that. And specifically, I don't know where you're listening from, but in the world, in the United States, we usually think more is better. So we're going to jump right in and do all 3. But I would suggest 1, especially for those of you who are saying it's arthritis and fibro for me, 1 set with light weights. Let yourself say, I could have done more, and be okay with that. That's okay. You have all the time in the world. You really do. So taking another week to feel good and ease into it is so super smart. So I recommend 3 sets ultimately, no more than that. And sometimes in a hurry, I will do 2 really high quality sets, 2 fatigue each time, set 1, set 2, and set 3. Never ever let yourself say, well, I'm doing 3 sets, so don't worry about it on set 1. No, right? You're missing a third of the work. It should fatigue you. So you have had a good warm up, so you're ready for that first set, but you do 3 sets. And Darlene, I'm not sure what your 8, 10, and 12 is. If that's repetitions, no, remember, I don't do 10 and 12. That all goes back to depending on how many repetitions do you need for your body type, for your goals, and for your limiters. So 8, 10, and 12 are really kind of a bulk building set. So if you were an ectomorph and having a very linear body, having a hard time gain, you might do that, but not necessarily. So if you're all about bone density, we're going to do 10 or 8 and 6. We're going to ultimately get there. If you're about performance, we're going to keep you at 15 to 20. So we don't slice and dice and do 1 of each. We choose based on our goal, and we know where that GPS is going. I hope that's clear. Okay, so I am going to jump off. I'm a curvy girl. All right, Tam, Awesome. How many days of cardio do you recommend? 60 doing weights Sunday and Wednesday. That's a good spread for your weight days. Awesome. So I recommend, and depending on you and what you love, so it's really important to me you love what you're doing, but 1 or 2 days of interval training for no more than a total per week of interval training of about 45 minutes. Otherwise, you're elevating cortisol and defeating the purpose. So, 1 or 2 days of interval training will help you use fast twitch muscle fibers, reaction skills, and enhance body fat burning, but without stressing you. If you do more than that, you're going to reverse it and start increasing the stress level, and that shoots you in the foot. So 1 or 2 of those, and then 1 or 2 of longer, slower workouts where you're not looking at heart rate or distance, but you're going for hikes. You're having a great time doing some kind of cardio. So hope that helps. That was a great question as well. Thanks so much. Is it okay to go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week? Some days are just cardio. It could be. My answer to that, Cindy, would be, is it working? Is it getting the results you want? And if it's not, something needs to change. So you have to either wiggle in there and say, it's the workout I'm doing that aren't working, or it's that this is too much for me right now. Sometimes we need a hormone reset, and that means taking a couple weeks and really resetting what you're doing. So hope that helps. Thanks, you guys. I'm late for my meeting. I gotta go, but I will post a little bit later. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.